Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Zen of Painting. As a disclaimer, this is a work in progress for me. Sometimes I think I'm super techie, and sometimes I realize I am totally not. And this morning I began my live stream at 8 a.m. and I went quite a while talking about using a limited palette and finished my live stream, and it was pretty slow. And then I realized I'd never pushed the start streaming button. Okay, so why, thank you, sodium free salts. We're working on this. We're going to be working on this one probably a little today. Here we have one that we've been working on, but I want to go over what I already did. Let me move this up to the corner. I want to go over what I've already done today that you all missed. And Penguin, who is one of my regular awesome folks. And by the way, hi folks in the chat. We have the amazing Mackenzie with us today and sodium free salts. It's lovely. So last week, Penguin asked if we could possibly talk about using just primary colors and just the three colors, red, yellow, and blue. And how many colors could we get from that? So this morning I went ahead and I grabbed, and this is Cad Red. I bought this tube about, I'd say 10, 15 years ago, and it was a large tube and it cracked. So I retubed it into 3 other tubes, and I still have 2 tubes left. So this is Cad Red Medium. Then I have the Michael Harding French Yellow Ochre and Ultramarine Blue and White. So that is what I did. And I thought, with just these 3 paints, how many different colors can we get? And then later, for the last little bits, I swapped out, because this is a cool, if you look at the difference between these, this cadmium yellow is a warm yellow, like sunshine. Whereas French yellow or yellow ochre, any yellow ochre is going to be cooler. Think of it as we're being in the shade, yellow in the shade versus yellow in the sun. So I usually use a mixed palette for all of them. I will use phthalo blue and ultramarine blue, phthalo being a warm one. Cad yellow is a warm, and I use alizarin crimson, which is a cool. So that's usually my general palette. Anyway, so because it was a challenge, I went ahead earlier. I put these 3 colors on the palette with white. And I started mixing. I started with just, for instance, the straight ultramarine blue, then brought it down with white. Then I did the red, brought it down with white. Then I did the yellow, brought it down with white. Then I mixed combinations of the above and brought them down with white. So allow me to show you guys. Can you guys guess how many colors we got out of there? Move these aside. Don't need to look at these right now. Okay, something like that. Let me go ahead and show you the palette, because I didn't erase the palette. Here we go, folks. This is what we ended up with. Look at all the different shades in here, guys. So this is just going to my theory. My theory being, you don't need to buy a bunch of paint. Paint's expensive if you buy the quality paint. I prefer you guys buy the quality paint. Again, 3 colors right here. Now the last ones here, don't look at these yet. These are all the ones done with the cool yellow. Then I just redid utilizing the cadmium yellow in these 4. Because I couldn't decide whether I wanted to use the cool or the warm. And look at the pop in those. So we still used 3 colors, but we used the cool and the warm. Isn't that amazing, guys? So let's say you're just starting off in painting. Please don't buy Winton paint. Don't buy student grade paint. Treat yourself to Michael Harding or M. Graham or even Utrecht or Williamsburg, even Rembrandt. is better than those other brands. My absolute favorite would be Michael Harding. Let me explain a little bit about the difference between the paints. If I was using student grade paint, I could not get anything but a solid gray out of this entire bottom row. And that is because there's not enough pigment in those. How they do it is the pigment's what's expensive, and that's the color. And in these cases, especially in Michael Harding's case, he grinds the pigment directly with no fillers at all with oil. In this case, I believe he uses linseed. Yep, in linseed oil in his. Different ones, M. Graham, they use walnut oil. So the ones that use the solid pigment with just the binder, which would be the oil, you're getting a lot of pigment. In other words, you got a lot of tinting strength. You've got, it doesn't have fillers that will weep later on or thin it out. Some of the fillers, it's like trying to paint with Crisco lard. It's the paint sticks to the palette knife, it sticks to your brush, it won't stick on the canvas, and it takes 2 or 3 layers of paint to get the same coverage you would get off of just using quality paint. So ultramarine blue here, you might be able to get it cheaper, maybe about $8 for a tube, or even on sale, maybe $5 a tube for the cheap one. I pay $12 for this blue. This blue will last me years. And I only need to use 1/3 of the amount of it because there's so much pigment in it. It also won't weep and it won't get hard prematurely in the tube. It'll just last for on and on and on. And also you get these beautiful separations of color, especially these 3 here. This is a prime example of when you use cheap paint, sometimes it's also a mixture of pigments. And the more colors you get together, the more gray it gets. So you won't get these beautiful separations of color at all. It's just terrible to work with. So I definitely want everyone to, buy 3 tubes of paint. Look at how much you got out of it. Just buy the 3 tubes of the quality Michael Harding, or as I said, some Williamsburg. There's also some other ones. If you ever have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat and I'll let you know the different ones, but don't buy student grade. It's just ghastly. You're getting what you're paying for. These will last you 10 times as long. It's a lot cheaper in the long run to buy quality paint. All right, so somebody asked a question. Pigment is everything. Oh, it is. Pigment is amazing. Okay. What is the one color you detest? This is a very good question. So I don't know whether we mean aesthetically or to work with. I have the most incredible love-hate relationship for phthalo blue. Phthalo blue and phthalo is a color that I would not work without. I know a lot of artists, we all have our own special thing, but phthalo blue has a ton of tinting power and it's a nice warm blue and it goes a long way. However, it's also evil. See this right here, that stain on my thumb? That's phthalo blue. You get a little bit of phthalo blue on you and they should use this for stamp pads because you'd never need to reload your stamp. I could literally get a little on my finger and touch on here 300 times and it would still be coming off because it is so concentrated. So let's say I get a little bit right here on my wrist, right here, right? I don't realize it. And I go and I pet my dog, I drive home. And when I get home, I'm going to start finding phthalo blue on my kitchen counter. I'm going to find it here and there because it's still all over. It's on the dog. The dog is running against the wall and now it's on the wall. So it does. It follows you everywhere. So anyway, as far as working with it, you got to be careful with phthalo blue. You got to do the pigment check. Don't ever forget the elbows. You'd be amazed at how many times you'll get it on the elbows. So phthalo blue is difficult to work with. Is there a color I detest? I'm kind of crazy about all kinds of pigments. Some of the more challenging pigments when you first start off would be the yellow ochres because they tend to turn green. However, once you learn, I pretty much love all of them. And yes, Rose is here today. I would love to show you Rose, but I do not have the dog cam yet installed. Hint, hint. Anyway, so this is what we did for 2 hours this morning while we didn't even turn on live stream. So we don't have anything to show for it. But in a way, that's kind of good because it was a little boring watching me mix this up. But it was a lot of fun. I sat and just had a blast. And again, this is really fun because we've got a lot of neat colors. And as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to leave it on here for now. And I'll probably just grab a fresh piece of regular old palette paper to work on because it's kind of fun. Again, you don't need that many colors. If you were, let's see, I should actually find something to stick on somewhere to show my favorite palette. But I do keep repeating it with every single one, with every single episode we do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take a real quick break and swap out everything. And I should be back in about 1 minute, okay? All right, guys. Let's see. We are back, and I figured, I'm going to be cleaning this palette up. This is my general palette, the one I use at my large easel. I love using a glass palette. It's just really nice. There is some reflection, which is a problem sometimes, especially for streaming, but it's still worth it for me. So I'm just using, actually, it's just a razor. It's something like you could get at Home Depot for in the painting section. I'm just going to take a lot of this off here so I have some room to work, and then we're going to get into painting again. I hope everyone's having a good day. It's going to be a good day today. All right, I'll just kind of go clean this up a slight bit more, and then we'll get going. I also have been known to use disposable palette paper. I try not to do that. I try to save the environment, but do notice that I have a gray background. Super important to have a gray background. Oh, it's all blurry. Oh, that's because I'm working and I'm putting, my poor camera doesn't know where to aim at. Okay, give me a moment and I'll be back with that. If you guys have any questions, always feel free to pop into chat and ask them. Wow, it's just so amazing how many more people interact with you when you're actually live. I just thought everyone was still sleeping. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and answer a question that lurkers will probably have if nobody else, and that would be how do you keep your oil paint from drying? There's not many ways to actually do that. There's ways you could slow it down. For a long time, I would have one of those stay wet palette boxes. This palette doesn't fit in it, but you can get glass palettes that fit right into it. And what I would do is I would take it home, put it in the freezer when I wasn't using it. That slows down the drying process. And also having it sealed from the air with the stay wet palette, which by the way, put a little bit of Vaseline in every corner, and that'll help it as well. That will definitely slow down the drying process. As far as, there we go, nice, nice, nice. As far as other methods, in the studio right now, our live studio or our open studio paint class, oh, lovely. Our open studio paint class, we actually are doing an experiment utilizing clove oil. And the theory was, and we are, some of my students and amazing artists, oh my God, they are such talented artists. They are actually putting cotton balls soaked with clove oil inside their sealed palette to see if it slows down the drying process. Kind of clever, you know? It's been a while since I've used this palette. Bit of a mess, bit of a mess. There we go. Clear that off. Okay. Anyway, so the experiments are going pretty interestingly. And I'm going to talk about my favorite palette, since this is officially now episode 2. The episode 2 that I worked on for a couple hours this morning was a bit useless since I forgot to hit start. And I'm going to clean this off so I can show you guys how I set up. So you do not need to buy a lot of paint, guys. You just don't. But do buy quality for what you do paint. Student quality is not student quality. Student quality is, I'm going to say it, it's pig swill. It's horrible. Don't use it. I always wonder how many artists, potential artists, picked up a bunch of student grade paint and were so disappointed with their outcome, assuming it was them, not the paint. Oh, let me know if the music levels are bad. I was told it was way too loud last time. So definitely let me know, folks, in the chat if it's a problem. It was even suggested maybe I shouldn't have any music at all. I don't know either way. I'll leave that up to you guys. As a parent of 4 amazing daughters who I'm very proud of and love deeply, ever since they were little, the sound of silence was never a good thing. Anyone raising kids knows that. So I've gotten in the habit of having some sort of noise in the background whenever I work. Is it okay for toddlers to use oil paint? Depending on which paint. Some are toxic. So you would want to stay away from the lead white. There are a lot of them that are non-toxic. The biggest problem with oil paint and toddlers would be the mess. And that is because, remember what I was saying earlier about do the hand check? Well, you know, they're very visceral with their hands, and they do a lot of stuff directly. So it would be something that I wouldn't do oil, but I would do acrylic. Just make sure you protect your area in your house. You definitely want to be sure that they don't inadvertently get the paint on things. Make sure they have absolute paint-oriented clothes that you do not care about. As a matter of fact, for fun, you might want to go to the Salvation Army and get like cute little white t-shirts and stuff like that, and let them go ahead and paint right on them. And then that could be, they could build their own painting smock that they use every time they paint. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, student grade paints are horrible. Using those for kids, oils, no. You could use student grade paint with toddlers, absolutely. I think that's about the only use I use it for, is for kids, or for, I will use the student grade paint for projects that are craft projects, where I'm not worried about, because I'm not going to be mixing more than 2 colors together a lot. And that's where you really get into trouble with the other paint. All right, that's good enough. That looks nice. Let's talk about paint. So the amazing Mary Gilkerson, I've had the pleasure of knowing a lot of amazing artists over the years, and Mary Gilkerson, and we all experiment with our different palettes, which kind of paints would you like, which ones, but there, you know. For a while, I was hung up on the Zorn palette. For anybody who is into art, which probably isn't most people, is deeply into art, the Zorn palette, Anders Zorn, Swedish artist, in the 1800s, what he would do is he did a challenge. And in his challenge, he used yellow ochre. That's a cool yellow. Wait. Yellow ochre, yes, cool yellow. Warm red, he used cadmium red. And then he used, and I don't have it on here, ivory, black, and white. Just those 3 colors. And he was able to make a whole series of paintings, and depending on where the colors were situated next to each other, it actually gave the illusion of the greens and the blues that weren't there. It was a subdued palette, but just those 2. Now, I was playing around with that for a long time before I talked to Mary Gilkerson, and she told me about the palette that she uses. So, a warm and a cool of each color, and white. Okay, so we have our white. This is an old tube of Gamblin I've had for a long time. Go ahead and drop my other palette over real quick. Sorry if I'm mumbling. Okay, I just put away the other palette. All right. Okay, so let's talk about this. Here we have titanium white. And then we have reds, a warm and a cool of each red. So Carl's Crimson or alizarin crimson, Fanchon red if you're using, and this by the way works with acrylic as well. So a warm, a warm and a cool, sorry. Here's a cool again, ultramarine blue. It leans more toward the purples. Okay, phthalo blue. That is a warm one, and we're going to mix these up so I can show you. Okay, here's the cool one, yellow ochre. And here's a warm one, cad yellow deep. Okay, so it's really weird to think about warm and cool. And people say, well, what do you mean by that? They're both yellow, they're both blue, they're both red. Well, think of it this way. What color is a brick? Regular brick. It's kind of a reddish orange in the sun. What color is it in the shade? Without that direct sunlight on it, it goes more toward a reddish, but a cool red. So let me go ahead and put out my palette here, and I'm going to mix here. And just today's going to be a great day for showing you how things mix. Okay, we got a nice little dollop of the white. And this is titanium white. Not a huge fan of straight zinc white. I don't mind ones that are mixed. Titanium white is a transparent white, meaning that it can be see-through. Think about it this way. Yes, reddish brown, absolutely. Think about it this way. If you were going to, oh, lost my frame of thought. It'll come back. Okay, so now I'm going to go with the blues. Actually, I'll do the blues on the end. All right, so I'm going to do cool first. We're going to have fun today. Okay. There's the cool. And here's my cad red, which is my warm. See how it looks next to it? Nice, huh? Hey, I guess this is a mild touch of color theory today in class. If anyone's curious about retubing paint, I'm sure along the way I will need to retube something. I'm kind of mean to my tubes. I also have some tubes that I have inherited from the 1960s. The paint is still viable. It didn't have fillers in it. It's quality paint to begin with, and it's still viable. So, alizarin crimson and cadmium red, or Carl's crimson. Very close. Okay, so I'm going to do the cool next to it. Now I've got my yellow ochre. By the way, I'm not meaning to get on a tangent here, but, oh, here it is right here. Different pigments are sourced by different companies from different areas. This is Michael Harding's plain yellow ochre, but they also have a French yellow ochre. And if you look, that is definitely a different color. They are both cool yellows as opposed to a warm yellow. But the French yellow ochre, which by the way, this is an earth pigment, meaning it is made from the earth. And when you're grinding it with a palette knife, you can hear it. You can hear the grains of dirt amongst in it, the pigment. So it's an earth pigment. And each area that they derive this pigment from, it's going to be slightly different. That's why different people fall in love with different brands and colors. There is a Shiva asphaltum color, and it's not even made anymore. I found, I used up my tube of it because I loved it so much. Used up my tube really quickly, and thought I could buy more, and of course there wasn't any more. I found some on Amazon, or eBay, and I bought another tube, and now I'm much more careful with it because I doubt I'll find any more of it. Okay, so now getting back to there, I'm going to take out the French because see, it's a little bit warmer than this one, and I just want to show you guys the main differences here. Okay, yellow ochre, I'll go ahead and put that one right here. I should actually move this down to here. That way you guys can kind of see the tubes. Okay, and then next to that will be the cad yellow deep. Now I actually prefer to use Indian yellow, and that is my regular one, and that one is a warm one, so I'm going to substitute that out for you. It just happens to be a favorite. I have a giant tube of this, the Michael Harding brand, in my open studio kit, and I need to bring it in because I'm almost out. Okay, there we go. There's our Indian yellow. Indian yellow is the difference between these two, Indian yellow and cad yellow deep. I can get this shade out of my Indian yellow by adding a little white. But this color is transparent. If you can see on here the little striations, this is actual paint on the labels, and it shows right off whether or not something is transparent. Okay. And having that transparency actually really does add to your flexibility. Okay, now I'll do my cold blue, which is ultramarine. That is a long-time favorite, the ultramarine. Almost every artist I know works with it, amongst others. We all find our favorites. I go through fits where I fall in love with a pigment and I'll use it for about 10 paintings, and it'll be an off type one. Okay, so that's our cool ultramarine blue. Is it focused? Oh yeah, it is. If I take off my reader glasses, it is. Oh yeah, two very different colors for sure. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put the phthalo. Now, remember what I was talking about earlier? The amazing Mackenzie asked me, what color do you not like working with, or something along the thing. And phthalo blue is my love-hate one. Check this out. See how little I have in there? Yeah, that's all I need, people. That's all I need. It has the staining power that you would not believe. Very concentrated. I love it though. It's a great color. Very versatile. Kind of like for any of you who have painted before, Viridian blue. I hate it out of the tube. It's a very or Viridian green. Sorry, Viridian's a green. I hate it right out of the tube. It's not a natural color for anything natural. However, it is an extremely versatile green. And speaking of greens, do you notice what's not on my palette? Green. And this is the palette that I use all the time. So let's find out why. Let's have some fun mixing up colors here, guys. We might not actually get to actual painting today. I'm having so much fun. But this is a really important one for you guys to be, especially anyone who's new to painting. This is a real important one to start off with, to give you an idea. Well, what colors do I want to buy? What are the best colors to start with? I would say definitely an alizarin crimson, the equivalent of a cad red medium. They do have synthetic versions of it now. Yellow ochre, Indian yellow or cad yellow, deep. Either one of those is fine. Indian yellow is a lot cheaper and a lot more versatile. Then we've got ultramarine blue and a little phthalo blue. And again, you don't need much. All right, let's have a little fun here, guys. Got my palette knife. Okay, let's look at the difference between these. Now, alizarin crimson or Carl's crimson is another really concentrated one. It's also transparent. Okay, lovely color. Okay, opaque, meaning not see-through. This one is your cad red. Warm and cool. If I painted a brick and I put the top in this color and the sides on this, it would actually be very convincing that it was a brick of shape, because shapes are caused by how light hits on things. All right, let's talk our cool shade, yellow ochre. It has almost a greenish tint to it, especially when next to the red. Colors next to each other tend to pull from each other. If I put this next to a different shade, it would look suddenly very different. Okay, Indian yellow. See how transparent that is? Need a little more of it. Okay, it looks a little warmer. A little hint on this one. I will need to add a little white to that in order to get it to show what it looks like. So I'll go ahead and put that over here. I'm going to add just a teeny bit of white. That'll make it opaque and less see-through, and it'll pop the color. Don't need much, just a teeny tiny bit. And look at that, boom. Such a pretty color. Always mix with a palette knife. Don't be cruel to your brushes. You can even go even more orange with that. Okay. So if you were starting off, this is really the only palette you would need. I do have a couple convenience colors that I am going to show you guys. That if you have a little spare change, it would be fun. Oh, okay. Asphaltum and Mummy. I will. You know what, Mackenzie? I'm going to go into that. I love the stories of pigments, and I'm going to talk about some of those because Mackenzie brought it up. Not my fault. Okay, so here we've got. This is a. Go ahead. Put a little white on this one too. This one is ultramarine blue. And look at that shade right there. Ultramarine blue, kind of a nice cool, and people say, oh, that's nice, but it's kind of warm. Oh, check this out. Now, phthalo, just like Indian yellow, you have to add a little bit of white to it or you won't be able to see it. See? Can't really tell a difference, really. As a matter of fact, it almost looks cooler right now than the ultramarine. However, and notice how hard it is even to get all the pigment off my knife in order to pull from my color. Check this out. Boom! Wow. So there we have it. Cool, warm, cool, warm, cool, warm. So I mixed a little of this here. That's the ultramarine. I'm going to have to take some of this off here because even that is too much paint. That's better. Notice how I barely had anything on here. Look at that, guys. So look at how warm that is versus how cool that is. Let's do the same thing with the others, just for an illustration. Gotta get all that phthalo. Phthalo, I swear, it's sticking on everything. It's a great color, though. Okay, let's add a little bit of white to some of these other colors here. Okay, Carl's Crimson or Alizarin Crimson. Nice, cool pink. And then, look at how warm that one is. This is the Cad Red. I'm going to move it right next to it. There we go. Can you guys hear Rose snoring? My dog is snoring under the table. Okay, so we have cool, warm. That one doesn't, that's confusing. Let's get that off of there. Cool, warm, cool, warm, cool, warm. Now we'll go with the cool yellow. Warm yellow. So side by side, you can really see the difference in there. Wow. I need to change my thing. This is really actually almost a green. I'll adjust it later. Actually, no, I'll adjust it now because that's how I am. It's got a camo. Yeah, it's really just not showing up. All right, well, so be it. Okay, so this is actually a very cool color, and this one's very warm and very bright, and I don't have it. Let me adjust this. less vibrance. There we go. That's a little better. Hard to tell. Hopefully it looks better on you guys. All right, so let's talk about some other pigments. So if one was going to be starting painting, this is the palette I would have you do. The two other colors that I would strongly recommend because they are so useful. Oh, by the way, for those of you worried about green, check this out. Bingo! You can do all kinds of greens. You can do them everywhere from a vibrant green to an olive green to a subdued green. These colors are great for mixing all different shades. Okay, now let me show you the other two convenience colors. So, two convenience colors that I really am never without because they're fun. Van Dyke Brown. I love that one enough to actually have giant tubes, and I also have giant tubes of all my others as well. And where is my transparent red oxide? This one is M. Graham, which is a great paint company also. I do have a large tube of the Michael Harding of this as well. But it's in my studio ones because I let my students paint with quality paint if they don't have their own paint. And then they get their own paint and they're happy. Okay, so let me show you why these two colors are amazing. And then we're going to talk about asphaltum and mummy brown. Okay, so transparent red oxide. Let's say I want to paint the sky. Okay, that is actually ultramarine blue right out of the tube, and as nice as that is, the sky is not that color. It's more saturated. It's too saturated. So if I wanted to add a touch, teeny tiny bit of the transparent red oxide, it will bring that color down to an absolutely perfect sky color that doesn't look unnatural. And not only that, when you pair it with some nice bright white and things like that, it's going to make the sky really pop. Same with the phthalo. My phthalo's right here. I'll add a little white to my phthalo. Again, most of the time when I paint skies, it's a combination of the ultramarine and the phthalo, believe it or not. Those are the two colors I use because the sky is never one straight color. It changes to the horizon depending on the day, depending on a lot of factors. Sometimes it's more phthalo toward the horizon. Sometimes it's more ultramarine and more phthalo up high. So just knowing that. Now this color is, again, not a natural color in and of itself. I'm going to grab a teeny bit of the transparent red oxide. I'm going to mix it in with it. I put too much. Hold on, this is easy to fix. Easy peasy to fix. Get some white in here. There we go. So now, instead of being that gouge your eye out color, it's settled down into a beautiful normal sky color. And I'm going to put that right next to this one. And these two colors, they're very subdued from what we first did, but look at how bright they are now. They're perfect and they're natural. If you ever go to the Salvation Army, you'll see people's first attempts often at painting. And a lot of times they use the color straight out of the tube mixed with a little white. And if you just take the trouble to bring it down just a hair more, you'll have a much more natural looking painting. That is, if that's what you want, what you're aiming for. Okay, so that's one of the uses for that one. Now let's talk a little bit about my use of Van Dyke Brown. If I'm looking to get a darker color, let's say I want to mix a black, I'll put a little ultramarine blue. a little alizarin crimson or Carl's crimson. Get a little bit more of the ultramarine blue. And I always mix my own, by the way. Always mix my own black. I like having control of it. Makes a lovely, this is a great shadow, purple shadow, by the way. Okay, now I'm going to add a teeny bit of the Van Dyke to it, and it's going right into a nice, beautiful, deep black, a rich black. I could also put in transparent red oxide. It would also do it. I use this to darken colors. There we go. There we have a nice, lovely black that I can push into any shade I want by adding a little more of the cool of any of those colors. Okay. May as well not waste that one because it's a good one. One thing I do always do is I always mix up every bit of paint that I have left over to make a neutral gray color. I'd kind of do it as a Zen practice, just to relax and have fun. I've heard that people just watch people mix paint all day. That sounds fun too. I think I would enjoy that as well. People find that very relaxing. That makes a lovely brown. I'm just going to put that right up there, and I'll just go ahead and clean all this off. So let's talk a little bit more about the origin of some pigments. Today's just all about pigments. So here's the thing. When we want paint, we go to a store that sells art supplies, preferably a store that specializes in art supplies. And we'll go and we'll find these lovely tubes of paint ready to buy, which is a lot of fun because, you know, what do you think the people in the 1700s did? They had to figure out how to make colors out of what was around them. So for instance, there's been a lot of Scarlet Lake is a color. I don't have it on my palette. I don't think I have a tube of it either. I might somewhere in my archives. Scarlet Lake was used through, I believe it was a plant-based scarlet color. And think of it like with berries, you know, squeezing berries. It's not berries, but think of it like squeezing berries and then letting it dry and mixing it with oil paint and using it as a color. And this is great. And they would do a lot of these wonderful paintings. And when you're painting, any of you who have been and seen these big, huge paintings with all the people in them, from like the 1600s, 1700s, these big oil paintings, they've lasted for hundreds of years, but everybody looks like they ate bad fish and are about to throw up because they are so green. Well, that's because the colors, when they were painting, they usually painted with greenish gray undertones, and on top they would layer transparent see-through layers of color. And I love painting that way. We will be painting that way on this channel when I'll show that while doing portrait work. So glazing over the colors, and the Scarlet Lake color was a color that was transient, meaning that the color over time fades in sunlight or not in sunlight. So all those layers at the time, these people had perfectly rosy complexions. They looked healthy and happy. And now, 200 to 300 years later, well, you can't really see any of that anymore. So all of the reds are gone from their face, leaving nothing but the greens and the grays. So they all look seasick. So anyway, light fastness is a huge issue with paints. Now, most of these now are synthetic. They also have high light fastness ratings, which you can find right on the tube. Let's talk about sourcing pigments though. Where's my favorite again? Oh, right here. Indian yellow. Indian yellow, that color I adore. Let me tell you the story of this one. It's fun. It is not Indian yellow as in American Indian. It is in the country of India. And it was discovered that if a cow subsisted completely on a diet of mango leaves, the urine was a very bright yellow. Yes, I did. I said it, the urine. And so artists who, mind you, there were no art supply stores and they wanted to paint. You look at something, you think, I wonder if I can use that. They would let it dry out, they'd grind it with oil, and it was called Indian yellow. So they would have all these cows eating all these mango leaves, and they were making the yellow from it. Two big problems with that. First problem was that it's not healthy, apparently, for cows to only eat mango leaves, and the cows were getting sick. So that was not working. The second problem is it was a transient color, a fugitive color, a color that faded over time. So what we have right here, this Indian yellow, is now created using a synthetic process so that it's color light fast, and that has the added bonus of we aren't mixing around dried urine. Okay, that was fun. So let's talk about my asphaltum. Here's the one I talked about. That's the very tube I was talking about that I found on eBay and was so thrilled. They don't make this anymore. Different companies do make asphaltum, but the one that they make tints very green, and that's not what I wanted. I love this one. Let's go ahead and open this one up. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous, almost tar, warm, beautiful, warm color. Look at that. It is a transparent color. It's just lovely. It works great when you're doing a lot of different paintings. I've used it straight to tint out shadows. It mixes beautifully with things. Matter of fact, I used it instead of the Van Dyke Brown and the transparent red oxide, both of these being opaque colors, not transparent. So I have a lot more versatility with having a transparent color. This color in the watercolor form was referred to as mummy brown. Okay, so here we go. Back in the day, this is an old color from the 1800s. Back in the day, this was discovered. Just to give you guys a little history lesson from the 1800s, and even way before, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, in Egypt, they were using mummification to preserve those who had passed, including pets. Every pet was mummified so that they could go to the afterlife. And there were thousands upon thousands upon thousands of mummies. And in the 1800s, archaeologists were in Egypt unearthing all of these mummies and these wonderful pharaohs' tombs. And in the Victorian era, it was a big thing it was all about Egypt. And so they would travel to Egypt, and vendors would sell these unearthed mummies. They would sell these unearthed mummies, whether they be pets that had been interred or people, they would be selling them to these tourists, essentially, who would bring them home, etc. Well, it was also discovered by an artist somewhere along the way that if you took the wrappings of a mummy and you ground them up, you would get this gorgeous color. And so it's basically ground up people, pets, and they would just grind it until it would become this pigment, this beautiful brown pigment. And it was very popular, especially among watercolors, where it was indeed called mummy brown. And in 1921, a famous watercolorist, who I can't remember his name, but I will find it, famous at the time, publicly wrote, "When I found out from whence the pigment came, I took it to the garden and gave it a proper burial." Okay, so I'm assuming it was the tar and stuff that they used to in the mummification process that gave it this beautiful color. Again, it was a more transient color, although not as nearly as transient as the Indian yellow and the Scarlet Lake. But now this is a synthetic color, and again, the this version of it is such a beautiful amber color. It's just a lovely warm shade. The other ones, let me see if I have the other one, sourced from a different company. Yes, I have one. Okay, this one is a Rembrandt version. Remember, they source them differently. Hopefully you'll be able to see the difference. It's much greener. I can tell right here. So we have, it almost looks like this one has transparent red oxide in it. But there's our two colors. And this one has just such a lovely glow to it. And you just can't find that. See how that's different? And it's because it's two different companies with two different sources. That's why you'll find some artists saying, oh, I absolutely love the Michael Harding Indian Yellow. And if they run out, they have to buy another tube. They're like, it's not the same. It's terrible. Okay, so let me put these back. That was a little fun thing down memory lane there. All right, so here we are. Anyone have any questions so far on what we've been up to today? Good. Okay, let me, I'm actually gonna put this up here, and I'll save my favorite one as well. This one is rare, because you can even see right here how warm it is versus where I scraped off over there. So I will definitely be using that in a painting. If you guys have ideas for things to paint, I've been working on Mackenzie's Nocturne, which we'll probably work on a little now after our break. And also it was suggested the primary colored one. That was a suggestion from Penguin, who is often in the chat room hanging out. This is great. Okay. Okay. I am going to take a quick break, and I will then come back and we will start painting. This has been fun. Okay. Let's take 5. Oh my God, have I really not had the mic on? Well, I guess I wasn't saying anything that important anyway. Okay, guys, we're done for now. We'll work next week. I swear, I need a dummy check. I'm going to have a list right in front of me. Be sure you're streaming. Be sure you're mentioning your sponsor, which is the Buenaventura Art Association. Be sure your mic is on, as I babbled on for no apparent reason. Again, if you guys wanted to contact me, you can always say something in the chat room, or you can reach me directly at zenofpainting@gmail.com. zenofpainting@gmail.com. And until next week, it has been amazing. Talk to you guys later.